Last night in two separate debates, two women candidates, one Republican and one Democrat, both told their male opponents to man up. For the past couple of months, we've heard quite a lot of female candidates and also male candidates. Nearly all Republicans, however, chiding male candidates to do things like man up or some variation on that phrase. We'll let them speak for themselves. Let's listen.
Man up, Harry Reid. You need to understand that we have a problem with Social Security.
So I think if you want to repeal health care reform and let insurance companies go back to their worst abuses, Congressman, then you ought to repeal your own first and man up and do what you're asking other people to do.
My opponent is addicted to a culture of spending, waste, fraud, and abuse, whether it's spending tax dollars on men's fashion shows or to pay off his cronies with sweetheart pension deals.
You know, these are the type of cheap, underhanded, unmanly tactics that we've come to expect from Obama's favorite Republican, Mike Castle. You know, I released a statement today saying, Mike, this is not a bake-off. Get your man pants on.
Impotent, limp, and gutless reporters take anonymous sources and cite them as being factual references.
Jan Brewer has the cojones that our president does not have.
We're not making this stuff. Christina Bellatoni writes for the Talking Points Memo, and Jonathan Allen writes for Politico. This is tricky territory for all involved, but I tell you, I've never heard so much of this. Your thoughts? And oftentimes, it's a female candidate up against a male candidate, and they use the term manly, man up, man pants, cojones, limp, whatever. A lot of references to sexuality. I'm going to get to some of the men doing the same thing in a minute.
Well, you could just imagine if a male candidate said, act like a lady, or why don't you, be a woman and do something like this. I mean, this is something that you would never stand for. So now you turn the tables and you have these women saying this, and they're getting away with it, and it's just a very bizarre phenomenon.
Because?
Well, I think it's
the men have no idea what to say.
With the exception of Robin Carnahan, it's sort of this mama grizzly phenomenon. We are tough. We are going to go out there and fight. We're up against the elite men that are making all the decisions in the back room. I mean, I'd be curious to know what Nancy Pelosi thinks about this. I can't imagine her ever saying something like that to John Boehner, for example.
Well, she doesn't have to do anything. She's as tough as they come. She doesn't need the lingo. Your thoughts, Jonathan? This is a tricky territory for my fellow male in this discussion because I don't even know what's PC right now. It is a common practice now to make these references in debate, sometimes face-to-face.
There's really no defense for a man. I mean, it's an effort to bait in a way. If a man stands down from that kind of challenge, he's admitting that he's the panty waist that she's suggesting he is. If he comes back too strong, then he may be looking overbearing. I mean, it's really a lose-lose situation for candidates here. If I'm a political strategist debate prepping people right now, I'm telling them, you got to be ready for this question and say something like, hey, that was clever, but what are you doing to create jobs? Find something you can say back because obviously if a woman is suggesting that a man is impotent or less than manly or doesn't have cojones or whatever the choice words are, in this case man up, there's not much he can do. It's a tough situation.
And some of it gets a little more pointed, like fashion shows, spending money on fashion shows. I think that has a certain connotation. Maybe it should. Let's take a look. Let's mix this up a little. Let's listen to what Carl Palladino, who's not exactly a sweetheart by any means. Here's what he says about Andrew Cuomo. I think both guys are fairly macho, I suppose, but let's know how one goes after the other. Let's hear it.
Andrew, stop the political posturing in Albany games. Come out and debate all the candidates. Why do you want to exclude the only African-American candidate? And the only woman candidate, and the Green Party candidate? I just don't understand. Come out and debate like a man.
Well, that sounds a little different than when a woman says it, but it's almost like get in the ring with me, stop hiding. But it doesn't seem to have the same. Well, here he is here. By the way, Cuomo's accepted. Apparently it worked. Cuomo's going to debate the guy. So apparently this like a man thing was irresistible, Jonathan.
That's right. I mean, the real answer to that, if you're not in the political forum where it's totally inappropriate, is to take a swing at the guy. So, come challenge my manhood anytime you want if you're a guy. If you're a woman, I don't know what to do about it.
I just wonder about this. This stuff happens in traffic in Washington. I swear, women can get away with blowing their car horn. They don't care if the other guy gets mad. Whereas a guy blows his horn, he better be ready to take that guy on at the next stop because he was going to have a little, let's talk about this on the side of the road kind of thing. And I do notice that happens, but I don't want to generalize the anthropology here, but I do think we saw in that debate. And here's the question. We just watched that in the last segment. Jump in here, Jonathan, as well. We watched Sharon Angle, who's the same age as Harry, roughly, maybe a little younger, both mature people, but one taking it very personal, saying you're basically a crook, you know, you're going to make illegal aliens get Social Security. Very tough charges. And Harry comes back kind of like afraid to show any attitude.
And that was, I'm certain, you know, everybody knows that it is, as Jonathan said, very difficult to debate a woman, particularly in this Sarah Palin age where people are ready to cry sexism. I mean, the lipstick on a pig thing, you remember
and
that.
And the elitism versus the outsider thing, too.
Also, I mean, this is an insult. You wouldn't say something like that to your coworker. If they said that on the Senate floor, you'd be hearing about it for weeks. So this is an area
What, you're a crook?
A crook or man up or come on and, you know,
it's pretty strong language.
The cojones comment, I mean, it's definitely...
I want her to finish the thought here.
It's definitely, it's taking this aggression, and that's part of the whole, you know, Tea Party Republican movement that's happening right now. And that's why, again, I'm very surprised to hear Robin Carnahan say that, you know, that she's sort of taken that to Roy Blunt.
Is this all just metaphor that these politicians don't punch each other? They don't risk physical assault. They're not street corner kids in tough neighborhoods. They talk in this way as if they're like those people. Isn't this a masquerade when people talk tough? As somebody once pointed out, the toughest sports like football, they talk reasonably to each other. In sports that aren't quite as aggressive like tennis, that's where they use the nasty language. Your thoughts on that, Jonathan? Politics is losing its gentlemanly aspect, are we saying?
Well, the effective debater gets under the skin of their opponent and makes them lose their temper, and certainly that's part of the strategy for anybody like, in that case, Sharon Angle or Robin Carnahan earlier in the day. You challenge a man's masculinity and, you know, hope that it riles him up, gets him angry a little bit, makes him look unsettled to the voters. You should also remember this cuts both ways. Harry Reid's been calling Sharon Angle crazy all campaign season, and that's something men use against women in usually subtler ways than Reid's campaign has been doing it. Absolutely. There's always an attempt to portray
kind of stuff.
Female candidates.
Let me go back. But don't forget there's some dog whistling here with Christine O'Donnell. You've got, you know, Christine O'Donnell, she suggested Mike Castle, you know, she said all these things about put your man pants on, acting unmanly. Well, one of her top aides made some comments about, you know, questioning his sexuality, and she distanced herself from that by repeating it over and over and over again.
You know, I got to go back to a couple examples, guys. Probably before you were both in the business, George Bush Sr., after debating Geraldine Farrar, said, I kicked ass last night. That did not go over too well. But then he did something brilliant against Pete DuPont. Pete DuPont was taking a shot at him. And you know what he said? This had to be Roger Ailes. Roger, this had to be you. He said, let me help you with that one, Pierre. That was a great put down. Anyway, you know, they used to say that the first name of a head waiter and the last name of a polluter, Pierre DuPont. No offense to anyone. Thank you, Christina Valentino and Jonathan Allen. Good luck with your new job, which is?
CQ roll call starting.